Okay, we're live, Chair.
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. It's now 7, so we're going to begin this evening's meeting of the Children's Services Overview and Scrutiny. We are being live streamed and recorded for the public. I believe that can be found on the council's website. And with that, we'll get to the first item of the agenda, which is apologies for absence. I've not received any. Have you received any, Wendy?
Yes, Chair, we've received apologies from Linda Pritchard, the co-op team member, and Councillor Okanade. Councillor Lydiard is substituting in her place.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Wendy. We'll move on to the next item, which is the minutes. Now, there are 2 sets of minutes to approve here. The last overview and scrutiny committee, as well as the minutes of the extraordinary meeting. Now, because the extraordinary meeting was exempt, if anyone has any comments on accuracy, etc., for those, we will be waiting until the end of the meeting for that, because those that weren't in attendance for that meeting will have to leave the virtual room, and will also have to stop live streaming. So I did notice, Councillor Muldowney, your hand risen. Would you like to make any comments on the non-exempt minutes, or is it regarding the exempt minutes?
Thank you, Chair. It's regarding the non-exempt minutes.
Okay, yep.
Just for accuracy, on page 7, second paragraph, I did agree that the neat figure was low, but the figure that I was talking about, that's 12%, is the youth unemployment figure. It's not 12% of the people who are not in employment, educational training. It's not 12% of the neat figure. So if that could just be amended to reflect that I agreed the neat figure was low, but that the youth unemployment figure is 12% for 18 to 21-year-olds, 11.3% for 18 to 24-year-olds. If that could just be changed for accuracy, that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, fantastic. With that amendment from Councillor Muldowney, is everyone happy to agree the minutes of both the sets here this evening?
Agreed.
Okay, it looks like we're all agreed with that. Next item 4, declaration of, item 3, items of urgent business. I've not received any or agreed to any, so we can move on from there. Item 4, declaration of interests. Does anyone have any declaration of interests? No, doesn't look like it. Okay, we'll move on to item 5, which is the youth cabinet.
Sorry, Chair.
Lydiard.
Sorry, Chair, just to say that I am a foster carer.
Right, okay. Fantastic. Thank you, Councillor Lydiard. We'll move on to item 5 now, which is the Youth Cabinet update. This is a verbal update, so I'd like to introduce our Youth Cabinet members of the meeting for any update they'd like to provide.
Yeah, hi everyone, hope you're all okay. I'm Lucia, I'm Chair of Thurrock Youth Cabinet. Also here today is Adam Sher, who's the Vice Chair of Thurrock Youth Cabinet. We also have Alicia Jones, who's the MYP for Thurrock. So I'm going to pass over to Alicia now.
I think I've just wiped that. There we go. So we did actually prepare a report for you guys. Unfortunately, a bit of miscommunication within the council. It hasn't unfortunately made it to you. So we are just going to quickly summarise what the report would say, just in kind of a verbalised manner. So as most of you have been here before, seen me talk about Make Your Mark before, the past few months has been Make Your Mark season, which is a ballot that we usually do in person. It's all about getting youth engagement and young voices heard across the country and ensuring that it's done on a national level, not just on a local level. Unfortunately, the figures haven't been as well received as kind of what they would usually be, as we usually do hit the million target across the country. It is substantially quite a bit lower, which I think because of schools and COVID, it is it's what was expected. But as a youth cabinet, we do work with the British Youth Council, the UK Youth Parliament, and other kind of national organisations to ensure that youth voice is heard. Lucia, I think it's back to you.
Yes, hi. So we have also been working on a BAME working group. So with this, we've been working with emotional wellbeing services and the NHS. So within this, we've been creating questions around mental health, and from this, we will be piloting with young people in Thurrock, and we hope to share this model across the wider Essex if it is successful. We have also been speaking with Roy, who's the acting head of Thurrock Music Services, about the decline of music lessons within Thurrock. He came with lots of questions, and we were able to work through it with him and provide useful feedback on like what was helpful and what we found was problems with music lessons. So it's a really vital bit of like communication that's gone on there. And the youth cabinet will be sitting on the music hub board next year to provide further youth representation. We've also been sharing our thoughts with Thurrock youth to like get better provisions. An example of this is we suggested a like an online chill session for young people where they can go on and chat informally to provide some key bits of communication through lockdown, because obviously people not being at school and being stuck at home, like social interactions are very limited. So we have been working on that as well. I think it's Adam's turn now.
We've been working on a program called the Modular Learning Program, or at least we've dubbed it Modular Learning Program. It will probably change at some point because it's not the most fitting title. And that's a program that we're putting together to send out content to teach young people about curriculum for life, created for young people by young people. And we hope that schools will pick this up and teach it because of the way that we're going to structure it. So we're creating 4 to 5, I think we decided on 4 in the end, 4 large umbrella topics. So an example being finance. And then under, say, finance, there would be lots of 5-minute bits of work, a worksheet, a presentation, a video. We hand these over to schools. We're currently working on a delivery system or a website that schools can use to access this with documentation, ways to use it, and how we recommend they should use it. And then schools, if they only have 5 minutes, they can do a 5-minute session, or if they want to do a full hour, they can stitch together the 5 minutes in whatever way they want, cutting out bits they don't like and putting in bits they like to have a full lesson that they want. I believe we pitched this to the headmasters meeting. I believe Lucia should know about this.
Yes, so I sit on a panel with the 11 to 19 strategy meeting with head teachers and directors of Thurrock. So I then pitched this last Thursday, I think it was, and we got really positive feedback from them. They said they're all willing to take this on board, which is really positive news. NCS said they're willing to work with us and provide us support. And everyone said once the website's up, send it over to them and they'll get this running within their schools, which was a really positive result.
So we're hoping to have that finished sometime next year because there's a lot of content we need to make and have it all planned out. So, Alicia?
Yeah, back to me. We've also been working with the Brighter Futures team and helping them update their strategies so it is from young people for young people, and we've been ensuring that that the priorities are in place for them. We've also been helping plan some short videos and ensuring that obviously it will be like a short film for young people and it be made by young people for young people, because that's obviously the best way of engaging. We also have been engaging with Young Thurrock and ensuring that they've got a new project called Young Inspectors, which is going to ensure that young people get to inspect all the services across Thurrock and see it from a young person's perspective rather than an older person's perspective, because obviously the 2 points of view looking at a service are very different, and I'm pretty sure the younger person will probably scrutinise it in a very different way. So this is a project that as a youth cabinet we've been feeding into and trying to give advice on how the project would set up and to ensure that it is as successful and not just a pot of money that's being spent somewhere to try and fill an objective. So that is us. Lucia, anything else?
I mean, not that I need to add, no. Adam, you all
Okay.
good?
No, do we have any questions?
Well, thank you for that update to begin with. That was detailed and very interesting. I recall at the beginning you mentioned a report that hadn't managed to make it to this committee. I don't know if you could liaise with Democratic Services on that and see if that could be sent out to committee via email form. I'd certainly be interested to read through that, and I'm sure committee would be as well. So if we could do that, that would certainly be welcome. Councillor Muldowney, you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Not so much a question, but just a comment on your report. I'm very impressed that you've written a written report, and that was a very detailed report with so many interesting, innovative things going on. It's difficult to pick out the bit I like best, really. I'm glad that you are working with music, though, because that's something that I think a lot of the arts is getting a little bit sidelined in the curriculum. So really glad to hear that you've been working in with the acting head of music. That's fantastic, and I'm absolutely excited to see the modules that you're the modular learning pieces of work that you're going to make. Yes, very exciting report. Thank you very much. You've obviously been very busy.
Okay, brilliant. Yep. So
I was going to just say thank you. That is really appreciative. I know me, Adam, and Lucia have had a bit of a rough few weeks with sixth form, COVID, and like me and Lucia are both self-isolating at the minute. So we really do appreciate kind of the support, because obviously we do all do this on the side of being, in education. So it is really, thank you.
brilliant. Michelle, did you want to comment or question?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just echoing Councillor Muldowney, actually, it's lovely to hear some of the projects that are being worked on. I'm particularly interested in the Young Inspectors programme because, of course, that is about scrutiny. That is about scrutinising the work. So I'll be interested, and I'm sure committee would be very interested in sort of reports coming back around how that's being developed. I guess the question for me is, we are in a global pandemic, so you've already said that you're self-isolating. I guess from a youth cabinet perspective, what's some of the things you're picking up from young people? And it may be that you can't answer this now, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but I do think committee would be interested in what you're picking up from young people as a result of, sort of COVID, and perhaps bringing that back to committee at a future meeting. I certainly don't want to put you on the spot now, but I do think it's something that committee would be interested in, around sort of, how young people are sort of coping around sort of, the COVID, what do they think about their future? Because clearly that's going to be, challenging. So I just think if you could think about that, that would be really helpful to bring back to committee. But well done, guys, doing some really good work. Well done.
Yeah. Would any of our youth cabinet attendees like to come back on Michelle with that just yet, or would you like to come back at a future meeting?
We'd probably want to come back just to make sure that we get a wide range of information and responses.
Yeah.
We could give our personal views, but that probably wouldn't be the best right now.
Why not?
Doesn't necessarily represent everyone.
Okay, all right then. Well, thank you for your reports anyway. Are there any other questions? I can't see any hands. No. Okay, we'll move on to the next item then, which is item 6. Items raised by Thurrock Local Safeguarding Children's Partnership, and with that, I'm going to introduce Priscilla.
Thank you, Councillor Anson, and good evening, everyone. Just want to introduce myself. My name's Priscilla Bruce Annan. I'm the new LSCP Business Manager. I've been in post 5 weeks. and come to you with a background that ranges from working in what used to be the Early Start Children's Centres right through to early intervention teams working with supporting families from a wide range of issues, from universal services right through to those that are supported through plans. I've worked in education, so I was a primary school teacher. I've also worked in an LA, developing and leading a team that develops training and development across a wide range of training areas, including school governors. I've also been for 12 years, not currently now, but over 12 years, been a school governor in the capacity of a parent governor and as a staff governor, and also led some training for school governors and trustees. I live in Thurrock with my family, and throughout my career, I've always worked to promote promote the best outcomes for children and young people, and that's really what's at the heart of what I do. And so in every job that I do, it's usually around something to do with developing adults in the work of children or children themselves as being in teaching. I joined the business team at a time when we've got some serious case reviews and some actions and activities that we need to progress and to make sure that those are implemented and embedded across the partnership, and that's something that I'm working on, and that's one of my priorities. The other priority I have is that I know Sheila's going to present the peer review later, but the recommendations that come out of that are going to be another area of my priority. Just really want to say that I've come to the team, and everyone across the partnership that I've come into contact with has given me a really good welcome and support to me as I've been in the last 5 weeks. Just really want to end by saying that a really good report from the Youth Cabinet. I was really impressed to hear the good work that you're doing. So I'm really impressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Priscilla. Are there any questions or comments for Priscilla? No, it doesn't look like it. Okay, well, thank you very much, Councillor Muldowney.
Sorry, just to say welcome, Priscilla. It doesn't seem as if you look old enough to have had all that experience. Fantastic level of experience there, and I'm glad that you're finding it very friendly and that you're enjoying being with the team.
Thank you.
I can see one other hand raised there, although it's not telling me who it is.
Oh, sorry, it's me, Sally Kawaja. I just want to say, Priscilla, you've got so much passion. You can feel it as you were talking there, and enthusiasm. And this is really going to help come across as in all the work you want to do, because you can just feel it off that you are passionate about children in Thurrock and working with people. So yeah, welcome. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sally. I'm going to move on to the next item now, and just before I do, I didn't mention at the end of our Youth Cabinet update that of course, as always, you're welcome to stay, but if you do want to leave, then please do. Now on to our first report of the evening. This is item 7, the Send Inspection Outcome Written Statement of Action update with Michelle.
Good evening, colleagues. I'd like to start by talking about what we discussed at our last ONS meeting, and that was in relation to the Parent Carer Forum. And I think committee had some justifiable concerns around where we were around the Parent Carer Forum. I did report back that we were going to host a number of engagement events. We'd been successful in some support from an organisation called Contact, which is the National Infrastructure Organisation. I'm pleased to say that those engagement events have taken place. We tried to ensure that they were at a range of different times. So we did one on a Saturday morning, we did one, early evening, so that we could try and capture as many people as we could. We had good representation. I think the thing that came out very clearly was in relation to the local offer. Now, I have to say, colleagues, the local offer comes up, on on numerous occasions and in numerous different formats. The report here talks about a meeting I had with parents with Councillor Jeffries, the portfolio holder, and again the local offer was mentioned. So what we're looking to do is we're actually going to do a refresh around the local offer. We recognise that actually people are saying about the content, and I accept that. We are doing some work around a communications plan, because I think one of our challenges is that we have got the local offer, but it doesn't appear as if enough parents are aware, or children and young people are aware of, you know, what it can do and what's on there. So I think we're doing some detailed work in relation to that. We have got I've had an update tonight actually. So we've got 5 parents who are very keen to join the Parent Carer Forum, which is great. I think when I reported last time, I was concerned that it may take a little bit of time to get a Parent Carer Forum up and running, but we have got sort of 5 parents. I'm also informed that there's another 5 parents who are very keen to join and to be part of the Parent Carer Forum. I think what's really important though, colleagues, is that we have a cross-representation, so that we've got a really good representation from a range of different, you know, parents from different groups. And I think what I'm hearing, certainly from our colleague in contact, is that she believes this is a really good sort of cross-representation around the development of our new Parent Carer Forum. So I wanted to report that back to committee, because I think that was something that was talked about at length at the last meeting, and quite rightly so, because we absolutely have to be able to engage with our parents and carers. We have to be able to listen to what they're saying. I'm really keen as the assistant director to make sure I'm listening, as is the director. So I think I'm really pleased that that work is moving forward. So I think that's where I'll start with that. I think that's where we are with that one. I also talked about in our last meeting annual reviews. We are starting to see some movement around annual reviews. We have got quite significant historical backlogs, and we are starting to see some movement now. That's in part because the local authority have been very supportive with some additional capacity for us to actually sort of move that forward. So we are seeing, you know, some change and some improvement around that. That has been to the SEND Improvement Board. As colleagues are aware, this work is overseen by the SEND Improvement Board, which is chaired by the portfolio holder. And then there's an operational group that really drives the work. So I think the other thing for me is around the quality of plans. So we're doing quite a lot of work now around person-centred planning. So what we're looking at, again, making sure that we're linking in with parents. I think we've tried to sort of, again, invite as many parents as we can to come and talk to us about person-centred planning, because actually we want to make sure that this plan, this EHCP, represents the child and is able to make a difference to that child. You know, colleagues, this isn't just a bit of paper. This has to come alive. It has to describe the child or the young person, and it has to enable them to progress and develop. So we are doing some quite detailed work in relation to that. So I think that builds on what I talked about at our last meeting. Chair, I'll probably leave it there, because I could go on for a long time about this. There's sort of lots of things that I could sort of talk about, but I did want to come back to committee with what was you know, discussed at the previous meeting, because as I always say, this report builds on the work that we're looking to undertake around you know, services to our SEND children and young people. Thank you.
Thank you for that report, Michelle. Just on this report, obviously, as we had last time, we had the RAG rating in here with us, and I just want to say that it's great to see that there are no red rectangles for October 2020. That's certainly positive. However, there are still a couple of areas that have been amber all the way through, and we do have just the one more session that this comes back. There's one rectangle left, January 2021. are we at that point, January 2021, expecting some actions to still sort of be outstanding, and what's the process for those, if that is the case, when we get to January 2021?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're working hard to ensure that we are moving all of our ambers to greens, but you'll appreciate that actually some of these have got quite a lot of component parts attached to them. So if we give an example of the portal, that's a good example, isn't it? So certainly the data integration project has been completed. So we have brought the data systems together, but the portal project is going to take that bit longer because, again, that's a culture change. That's a whole system change. So we are looking at sort of moving those forward as quickly as we can. But the difficulty that we need to address is bringing together all of those component parts. It's really interesting for me, this whole service, because we've got our SEND service, which clearly is leading some of that work, but that links into work with schools, that links into work with our colleagues from health, that links into work with colleagues from our social care. So it's about making sure we've got that whole system culture change. But clearly, Councillor, we will be working hard to ensure that all of the work that we put into our written statement of action, and clearly, as I've reported to committee on a number of occasions, it's not just about what's in the written statement of action. This is a wider sort of system change, really. So, but we are working hard to make sure. So the next report will come, as you say, quite rightly, will come in February, actually, but I'll start writing it in January. So clearly we'll be looking to see what we can move in relation to some of those ambers into green.
Thank you, Michelle. Councillor Muldowney.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Michelle, for that report. I mean, it's not been that long since the last report, and to be fair, we've had another lockdown during that time. So it's about a month and a half, isn't it, that the report covers. So it has been really good to see that progress being made, particularly with CAPA. I'm really, really happy to see that. I did listen into one of those meetings. I did join up for that event, and I thought it was really well run, really well structured. And I'm glad that they've had a good response, and that new parent carer group is off to a really positive and healthy start. So it'd be really interesting to see how that develops moving forwards. So I'm delighted about that. Yes, I think there are some areas, as you say, that are still in amber, and as Councillor Anderson says, but consider, I'm really happy with the progress that's been made, considering the short length of time. I think you have definitely had movement on the key areas as much as possible. Yes, I didn't really have anything in terms of challenge to offer you. I think that you've done all you can probably within that time frame, and it's been done well. So well done everybody that's been involved with that. I think you've done a really good job.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I'll certainly take that back to the team. I appreciate that.
Fantastic. Do we have any other further questions or comments for Michelle on that report? I can't see any hands up at the moment. No. Okay. Well, in which case we'll go to the recommendation for this report, and that is for ONS to scrutinise the work that has been undertaken during the period outlined in the report and offer support and challenge. I think a healthy amount of support has been offered there, Michelle. I'm happy to agree that recommendation. Is everyone else happy to agree? Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Well, with that, we'll move on to the next item, which is yourself again, Michelle. This is the fees and charges pricing strategy for 21-22.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. So what I'm bringing you is an annual report. This report comes to committee every year, and this just sets out the fees and charges as part of, the Children's Overview, the Children's Overview and Scrutiny Committee responsibility. I think clearly this has been a very difficult year in relation to COVID. So what we've tried to do is do some market testing. We would do that anyway under our commercial principles. So a good example would be, you know, our outdoor education centre, Grange Waters. We would always look to see what competitors were doing in the market, to see, you know, what the prices look like, so that we can look to see where we might do some increases. In the main, we've gone for around a 2 to 3% sort of like, you know, inflationary sort of increase. I absolutely recognise that, you know, committee may say, well, actually, given the year, some of this might be very, very difficult. But we felt, given the commercial principles, given the fact that actually, you know, the local authority will be facing some really difficult challenges around sort of, you know, income across the whole system, that we just needed to apply where we could some of those sort of increases. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, colleagues, actually. It just, as we do every year, it talks about, you know, some of the changes. So we've certainly done some changes, sort of quite minor changes, certainly actually thinking about it in relation to our sort of nurseries, and that was due to the 30 hours being introduced. We've just done some realignment around what that needs to look like, just to make it more straightforward, actually, colleagues, to make it sort of more straightforward. As I said, Grange Water's between sort of 2 and 3%. We've tried to sort of keep that at reasonable levels. As colleagues were aware, we were able to reopen Grange Waters in the summer, and I have to say it was incredibly well used by Thurrock families, which is fantastic. So it has been well used. Clearly, we had to sort of close it again, but we're hoping to sort of get it open again. And we clearly do use that for some of our SEND learners, and sort of to support some of our sort of pupil referral sort of units. So I'm afraid, I know it's very small, the detail. I must, as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking it must have been very difficult for colleagues. I'm just looking at it myself, thinking I might need my magnifying glass. But as I said, it is a report that comes yearly. We've adopted the commercial principles in the region of sort of 2 to 3%. If there was any opportunity to do a little bit more, because we've done some market testing, then that's what we will have done. So I think I'll probably leave it there, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. I was wondering if you could comment. Obviously, you mentioned there, and also in the report here, it mentions that you know, one of the factors taken into account is what do our competitors charge, and you mentioned market research done. How there are 3 main categories here. We've got Grange Waters nurseries, adult community college. How do we compare to other authorities in our pricing?
So certainly with Grange Waters, we are below you know, what our competitors would charge, and that's deliberate for us, really, because it is about trying to support you know, our families who we recognise you know, will be finding it really tough. So we tend to keep our prices, you know, for me, it's about recovering costs. Now, clearly, with anything that we're doing, it's not just about recovering costs. We need to see what else we can do around sort of income generation. But as far as Grange Waters is concerned, we are below some of our competitors. Nurseries will be in line, really. So, and nurseries, in a sense, Chair, are linked to what the national funding formula looks like. So there's a national sort of funding formula that comes into the system around nurseries. I think some of the challenge for us in relation to our nurseries, and I'm sure committee will have picked this up, is that, you know, our nurseries do not tend to attract fee-paying parents. So it tends to be more of those parents that, you know, are on sort of low incomes. And that's why we've got those nurseries in Tilbury to support those parents with that sort of early years sort of intervention. Because what we recognise is that actually if you get early years right, coming through the system, then that really helps that child without a shadow of a doubt. You know, I'm incredibly proud of our early years team. You know, we've got someone that supports all our childminders. We've got people speaking to our nurseries and our private providers, you know, continually. So I think it's really important that we get that early education sort of within the system. So, you know, I'm very proud of the work we do. and I want to ensure that continues. I think with TAC came in last year, so this is the second year for TAC, and what we've tried to do is just keep that at a sort of reasonable level. Again, we recognise that many small community groups, do like to use, council spaces, and TAC is one of those. So we try wherever possible. It's always a balance, Chair. It's a balance between making sure we're supporting our communities and making sure that we can cover those costs to support the wider system around, income generation across the council, linked to the organisation's, commercial principles, really. I hope that helps.
It does. Thank you, Michelle, for that rather detailed answer. Are there any other questions, comments from anyone? Again, I have no hands up. So, Councillor Rigby.
A question. It's just with regards to the fees that I do appreciate. Obviously, it is difficult to put up fees at this time, but I do think that the right decision has been made, because the council does have to cover their costs, and so I know it's a difficult decision, but I think that is the right one.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Rigby. Councillor Muldowney.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we obviously knew that increases or cuts were coming down the line, and they do seem like small amounts when you look at them. And actually, I had to go and look at them online, Michelle, because it was too small for my old eyes, especially even with my glasses. So yes, so they are all above inflation, I think, increases, which is a shame. I understand why we're doing this. Grange Water doesn't bother me too much, because I know we're still competitive there. It's really the childcare where is the area that I'm most concerned about, although I do understand obviously the pressures that there are. We don't want our providers, we don't want certainly our own council providers to go out of business. It doesn't help that the 30 hours formula isn't properly funded. The thing that I was concerned about in the report, and I just wondered if you could say a little bit more about it, was about, it's on page 67, sorry, 3.5. Certain nursery place charges have been scaled for 2021-22 to give a better reflection of the different offers we have available. Obviously, the actual costs of services are a lot more than, are increasing all the time, and a lot more than we charge. The thing that I was, where is it? I might be looking in the wrong place. There was a section that said about changing the availability of the 30-hour offer, so that it wasn't going to be during peak hours. Perhaps that's in a different place. That was the bit I was concerned about anyway. Is it under there? Might be on the next page. Oh, sorry, it is on the next. It's on page 69. I beg your pardon. So operation hours need to be reviewed around core 30 hours, which will allow the service to charge parents for periods normally used by commuters and working parents. Well, the 30 hours offer is there to support working parents, so I just wanted to check about that. It's great if you're doing work with local employers so that we can align working hours. I'm just a little concerned that the people that most need the support from the 30 hours actually probably working single mums, as many single mums are now, or working parents in general. How is that going to affect them if their hours fall within those commuter and working parent hours? And what steps can we take to make sure that we're not excluding them from the provision that they need in order to keep taking up work?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think to give you reassurance, councillor, you know, the two nurseries that we run actually in Tilbury, and we run one in Grays, you know, clearly they're very targeted at that very, you know, person, that very single parent. So when we looked about sort of the core hours, what we're finding, Councillor Muldowney, is that we're working closely with employers, and they're saying, well, actually, whilst you think the core hours are 9 till 4, they're not. The core hours now, people are working till 8 o'clock at night on shift patterns. So we're trying to sort of navigate the market, for want of a better word. So, and clearly some of the work we're doing with some of the large employers, particularly in Tilbury, where many of it is shift patterns, we're trying to sort of make sure that we can cover sort of all of those sort of childcare requirements at a local level. I think the 30 hours, if many people accessing the 30 hours in our Tilbury nurseries are single parents trying to just do some hours of work, which is absolutely, you know, fabulous. That's what we want to encourage. We want to encourage that, because actually that enables them to develop and progress. So if that reads like that, I can see where you're coming from, but that's not the intention. The intention is to make sure that we have a strong offer for early years provision to enable people to get themselves back into work. That becomes more challenging, councillor, given the current circumstances. However, we have got some large employers that have got shift patterns. So to give you some reassurance, you know, we are working to ensure that those parents, those individuals are supported.
That's great, Misha, because obviously, you know, if people do work shift patterns, they're going to overlap with fee-paying parents who commute, or who who work and commute, especially if they're commuting to London, as so many people do from this area because of our nearness to London. Well, thank you. I mean, I'd certainly welcome hearing more about all of that in the future. That would be good. That was my main concern from the report. My other point is sort of a more general one, really, because although we're seeing a little bit here and 40 pence here and 50 pence there, it doesn't sound like a lot. When you start to look at things that are coming through the other overview and scrutiny committees, you know, we've got rents going up, we've got service charges going up, we've got council tax probably going to go up by the maximum that it can go up. Then if you've got 1, 2, 3 children, it all starts to add up. So I've just got a general overriding concern that I'd just like us all to keep in mind moving forwards, that this is going to start putting people who are just about managing, you know, it's not far to push some people who are just about managing over the line. So I'm reluctant about the range of increases that are happening, because I do think that it's going to create financial hardship for some of the people that we've got living in the borough who are on that just about managing line.
Thank you. Thank you, councillor.
I'm not expecting you to solve that in this scrutiny committee, obviously, but
thank you, Councillor Muldowney. Councillor Lydiard?
Yes, I'm quite happy. I don't see any problems with the increases. They also seem quite small and reasonably fair. So yeah, carry on.
Thank you, councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Lydiard. I can't see any additional hands up, so I'm going to move to our 2 recommendations for this report. They're outlined on page 65. I won't read both out. 1.1, 1.2, are we happy to agree to those? Yeah, I can see nodding heads. Okay, it looks like we're agreed with those. The next item on the agenda is children and social care performance, and Joe, you're leading on that.
Thank you. I just wanted to provide an overview of the performance report, which is covering Q1, which is April till June this year, which is just making people's minds aware that it's around the first lockdown period that we're sort of focusing on the data report from this. I think, as you can see from the report, we've seen a reduction in the contacts into our MASH comparing Q1 from this year to Q1 from last year. We've seen what the data is quite a significant reduction in the contacts, which I think is in line what we're seeing nationally across the data and the intelligence. I think that's in line with that. Obviously, I think we were a little bit concerned of the referrals we were getting at that point, but I think we have seen a significant increase in contacts over recent months. And when you look at the referrals coming to children's social care, what was meeting the threshold, again, we've seen a significant reduction in the referrals coming into children's social care, and there was a drop of 27.4%. So that was leaving into work that we're seeing. And I think because we had the reduction of schools, the children that are attending school, obviously education is a main referral route into children's social care. So I think we'd expect to see that in line. There was a level of concern. We just want to make sure that's why we looked at advertising to make sure people knew where to refer to if they were concerned, if they were isolated, if there was any sort of concerns around domestic abuse or violence in respect to relationships. So obviously that was a key factor around that aspect. So I think we've seen a reduction in the contacts and the referrals during that first phase of the lockdown. But as I said, we have seen a supplementary increase in respect to that. Look, when we come on to looking at assessments, obviously for people's just information is that we complete assessments on new cases that come into children's social care, but we also complete assessments where we have our looked after children reviews and our child protection conferences. So it isn't just linked to the referrals that come in new to the local authority. So, I mean, the latest position shows that there was 975 assessments completed in Q1 of this year compared to 1,242 in Q4. But when we compare like for like of Q1 this year to quarter last year, we've seen an increase by 33.6% about the assessments being completed during that period. And you can see from the report we've had a continued good performance around our completion of assessments, and we're above the average and above the Eastern region and national average about the completion of our assessments. And you can see from the report that 97.3 were completed in time. This is up by 4.6% from Q4 and 2.1 higher than the same period for last year. And I think when we come on to looking at our young people have been subject to child protection plans, we see that looking at that quarter we had 179 in April, 168 in May, and 159 in June. Just to give you a current position, our current number is 122. So you can see that there's been a flux in there, but I think some of the things is quite fluid when we're looking at the child protection numbers, because you can have a family of 4 or 6 or 8 children, and you can see how that affects percentages quite quickly in respect to the increase or decrease that you have. So obviously what we do have is a mechanism where we review all child protection cases on a monthly basis. We identify themes around if it's around domestic abuse, neglect, lots of different issues. So we look at our child protection, make sure the plans are effective, the families are supported in the right way, and if the case is stuck, we look at what support can be provided to the family to support them to move on. And where there is an increased risk, then obviously we make the appropriate decisions around risk to safeguard children. So that's the position regarding child protection plans. And you can see that our looked after children numbers have been relatively stable. I say in April we had 298. May was 298. Then we had a slight increase in June, which was 305. So looking at the current position, we've got 291 children that are currently looked after at the moment. So again, you can see that flux because certain young people are reaching 18 years of age, so they will come out the system, become care leavers. Then you'll have new young people that it's needed for them to become looked after and be supported in that way. So I think that number is quite stable. I think, as I say, you'll see a general flux within a certain level between our looked after children coming in and that are needing support at that time. But I don't think there's anything of concern nationally. When you look at over the last 3 years, it's been averaging about 300 looked after children we've generally worked on as an average. But what we did see is a part of the initial lockdown that lots of families were initially struggling, as you can imagine, due to the isolation, especially around our young people with additional needs. I think that was a factor where you think about respite, where some parents were uncomfortable to send their young people to get respite and support around direct payments. So obviously they're at home a lot more, which is a lot more challenging. And some young people, routines is really, really key to them, and it makes them feel secure and supported around that. That could be going to their particular school provision, but it could all be about seeing their favourite person or about the support. They go to the swimming baths every Saturday. So there's lots of different factors that impact, and we've seen a slight increase around our looked after numbers at that point, but they have now stabilised, as you can see from the data, and the current position of seeing that they're back to, as I say, 291 in respect to that. So. So I just wanted to move on to our sorry about that, just a bit of paper there. I wanted to move on to our missing young people, so you can see that the trend in respect to that. And you can see that there's been a downward, there's been a reduction in our missing episodes comparing this year to the same period last year. We can see that from the report, there was like 161 episodes compared to 193 in Q1 from this year to last year. That was involving 57 children, and I think we have seen a really an upturn in our return home interviews. For instance, we've been working with Aspire and changed that from Open Door to Inspire. There's a lot more better join up. We're seeing a better return on our return home interviews, which is really positive. It's quite early days in that changeover, but some really sort of positive trends that we're seeing, and a good join up between obviously the two services as well, I think, which is really, really important. So again, we're seeing that downward trend, but again, when you think about the national lockdown, percentage of that could be linked to those particular changes for young people. They didn't have the ability to go out and about as much, so that's maybe one of the contributing factors in respect of that. So then were just a few headlines that I sort of wanted to provide in respect to the report, but I'm now able to take questions if anybody has any questions in respect to the data or what I've presented.
Thank you for that, Joe. You've largely answered my question, because when these sorts of reports have tended to come to committee in the past, I tend to ask questions about missing episodes. I think it's important to scrutinise that, because as the report rightly says, the draw of friends can be a reason for missing episodes to occur, but so can more nefarious reasons. So it is good to see that downward trend, and I'm sure, as you are, I'd really just like to see that trend continue to go down. But other than that, I have no further comment. Are there any comments from any other committee members? No. Oh, Councillor Muldowney.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Joe, for the report. Just one thing I wondered about on page 87 of my pack. I don't know if that's the same as yours. 5.3 is anyway, about the repeat child protection plan. Obviously, there's signs that progress are being made. It's great that you've got 100% on the child protection reviews. Obviously, some of it is impacted by lockdown, so maybe it's a bit early to say it's an improvement before we see how that actually pans out in the rest of the year. But not in terms of the child protection reviews. That's obviously they've been completed. And that's fantastic to get 100% completion on those. But looking at the figures on repeat child protection plan, although there's been a little bit of a dip, when I was looking at the chart, there seems to be an upward general projection. which has been going up for a while. So we're still a lot higher than we were 2 years ago. What kind of factors do you think are at play? What kind of things do you look at to try and explain why children? Is it just because we've got this different system now? So with signs of safety, children might go into a lower offer during some periods and then go back into needing a higher level of support for families. Could you say a little bit more about that?
Definitely. Obviously, as you can imagine, that obviously repeat child protection plans is a key focus for us at the moment. And part of those sort of monitoring that I mentioned before is we've had a focus on looking at our repeat child protection plans. And obviously what we've done is we've put in a mechanism where anybody where there needs to be a repeat plan or a repeat plan has been considered, that's obviously discussed with a senior manager to explore the reasons and rationale, and if is there any learning in that particular case for us to consider. But some of the examples, if I could give you, is like, say for argument's sake, there was a family that may have been placed on a child protection plan because of domestic abuse, or there is a particular parenting issue that's connected with both parents. Then they separate in there, so then they assess that risk to be reduced and no longer meet the criteria of a child protection plan. But 6 months down the line, they get back together. The concern is there. You've provided some clear advice to the family. That's not been accepted. You're then looking to escalate, and the process is, if where you're having repeat child protection plans, it would imply that the first plan has not been as effective as you would have liked. Maybe that's because there's been a transparency issue, or because of the time frame involved. So then you're looking to yourself and thinking, is the risk increasing? Do we need to take a different strategy about looking at the public law outlined in respect to the concern? So I think what we've often did is we've looked at those and thinking, was there any learning from the CP chairs? And we haven't identified any issues in respect to the decision making of the child protection chairs. That's been quite consistent based upon the multi-agency sharing information. But again, it's about where there's situations that have returned that you couldn't foresee at the point that you ended that particular plan. And what we do is the guidance is you have to work with families for a minimum of 3 months around child in need to support them when there's been a child protection plan. But we made the decision that we will be supporting families for a 6-month period, just to make sure that we're supporting them and they've embedded them changes that we need. But if, for argument's sake, it reverts back and the concern increases, then we either look at a repeat child protection plan or maybe seek legal advice depending on the level of risk or concern.
Brilliant. Thank you, Joe.
Okay. No more hands up, it seems. So I'm going to go to the one recommendation for this report, which can be found on page 80, 1.1. Are we all happy to agree that recommendation? I am. I can see heads nodding. Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Sorry. Was that someone just agreeing? I think it was. Okay. We'll move on to the final report then, which is the LCP independent peer review, and this one is Sheila to present.
Thank you very much, Chair. I will assume everybody's had a chance to have a look through the report, both the covering report and the appendix on, which is the report in full. Just to give a brief overview, though, to help committee. The Local Safeguarding Children Partnership, we abbreviate to LSCP, came into being in May 2019. And just to sort of emphasise that this is a multi-agency partnership. So it's not just for the council. There's 3 statutory partners. That's health, police and the council, but also all the other partners who work in with children. So we have a range of partners that include schools, voluntary sector, anyone that's actually working with children. So in the governance arrangements, when we set up the partnership, we agreed that we would have an annual independent review of our work, and that was in place of having an independent chair, which we previously had when we were a Safeguarding Children's Board. We agreed that we'd have a rotating chair across the 3 statutory partners, And that started off with the health partner chairing for the first year, which was 2019 to 2020. And then now it's the turn of the council, and I've been chairing the partnership since April 2020. The partnership chose to have a full independent review, and I'm pleased to say that you'll be able to see that report in full at Appendix 1. So the brief for the review is at section 3.1 of my covering report. There's 26 recommendations that came from this review, the majority of which are operational in nature and are already being addressed by the partnership, and an action plan's been drawn up against those recommendations. At 3.4 in my report, I've put down some of the key recommendations for the review, because there's quite some big recommendations in there as well as some more operational ones. And for example, that the partnership should consider again having an independent chair stroke scrutineer. The role of an independent scrutineer was created in Working Together 2018. So it's a slightly different role from the previous just independent chair. That we should be looking at equal financial contributions from the 3 statutory partners. You'll see in the report that the council, makes up, if you like, the lion's share of current financial contributions, and given it's a statutory partnership, that should be more equal. There's also issues about audit and quality assurance across the partnership, and that the report felt we needed to make that stronger and to develop that more. So we're definitely going to be doing that over the coming months. At 3.5 in the covering report, there's an assurance statement from the independent reviewer, where she's basically confirming that the multi-agency safeguarding arrangements for our LSCP are compliant with Working Together 2018, and that the arrangements do ensure children in Thurrock are safeguarded and their welfare is promoted. So what I'd like to say to committee is that the review will enable us to build on the positives of the multi-agency partnership and take forward the recommendation will strengthen the partnership going forward, and everyone in the partnership is committed to doing that. So I'll take any questions from the committee.
Thank you for introducing that, Sheila, and I'm sure as everyone else on committee does, I certainly welcome this sort of independent external scrutinising of this function. You mentioned an action plan. The action plan can come to committee in future, so we can sort of compare, where we are with actions and progress, etc.
Absolutely. I think Priscilla alluded to this in her introduction. Priscilla, as the partnership manager, will be leading on taking forward the action plan for us. Work's already started on that, but obviously we wanted to get this report to committee as soon as possible, so the action plan can follow. And I'm sure we'll have something ready certainly for the February committee. I can see Priscilla nodding as well.
Yes, that would be fantastic. Obviously, as you mentioned, there are 2 statutory partners that we work with in this. Have we had any feedback from them? And their thoughts on this report. Obviously, those being the police and health partners. Have we had any dialogue feedback from them?
Yeah, I mean, this is a multi-agency report essentially, so it's been shared absolutely with the partners, of which we are one, and we are equal partners. So the 3 statutory partners are equal partners. I know we're very pleased with the report because, whilst there's areas where we need to do better, that's the point of having an external expert to come in and have a look, because we just want to be the best that we can be. And so all of the recommendations are accepted by the 3 statutory partners, and all the other partners as well. We're all very signed up to this. And as I say, the action plan that will come from it will actually form part of our work plan going forward for the next year. And I think something Priscilla, who works to the 3 statutory partners, will make sure that we actually action and happen. So I think that for the scrutiny committee, you know, it's really important that we report back and you can see what we've done against those recommendations, because they're, albeit it sounds quite a lot, some of them are fairly easy fixes, but some of them are a bit bigger. So, for example, having an independent chair stroke scrutineer, you know, we have to advertise for that. We have to go out and make sure that we have a competitive process and get someone external for that. The issue of trying to get equal funds across the 3 partners, that's not going to happen overnight. You know, we have to go through processes, and I suspect that will take probably 18 months, 2 years before we get to the point, because it has to go into finance cycles. So there's some quick fixes and there's some other ones that are going to take us a bit longer. But I think it'd be helpful for you to actually see how we're going to do that and what timescales that we have.
I definitely agree with that, Sheila. I mean, is there? I can't see any hands up, but is there any comment or questions that anyone else on committee would like to provide or ask Sheila at this point? No. Okay. Well, certainly from my point of view, Sheila, you know, there looks like there's a good healthy set of recommendations here, and you know, if we can make good progress with these, as was the point of the exercise, I think our partnership will be a lot better off for it. So that's fantastic. I'll give one final chance for any comments or questions before I go to the recommendations. No, okay. Councillor Muldowney.
Go on then. Just to say, really to echo what you've already said, Chair, but really welcome this independent review, and good luck about the funding arrangements. But that does seem like that should be made equal between the 3 organisations in partnership. It looked like a really good piece of work, and we'll look forward to it coming back with the action plan coming back. And digging more into the detail of it then. But yes, really to echo your comments, Chair. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, well, I'll go straight to our recommendations then. We've got 3. 1.1 can be found on page 1, and then 1.2 and 1.3 can be found on page 2. I'll take them all together. Are we agreed on those 3 recommendations? Yep, I can see nodding heads. Brilliant. Okay. Well, that was the final report of the evening. The last thing on the agenda is the work programme. Is there any comments from anyone with regard to the work programme? Obviously, I know that February looks like it's likely to be our last meeting of the municipal year. So, is there anything anyone desperately wants on the agenda, or any comments for officers? Wendy, you've got your hand up.
Yes, Chair. I just wanted to bring to members' attention that the emotional health and well-being report will potentially be added for February's meeting. And that's a report that will be going on to Cabinet.
Right, okay. That's perfectly okay. Okay with me. That would make 4 reports for February, and we'll also Sheila have the action plan for that last item as well, won't we? So there's 4 or 5 things there for us for the February meeting. But unless there's anything else from any members, I shall close the meeting. Well, thank you everyone for joining us this evening, and I'm going to end this meeting at 9 minutes past 8.
Thank you.
Chair.
Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Cheers.
Bye.
Well, good night.